Gnostic writings were condemned at councils such as the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, where the Church sought to define orthodox Christian doctrine and suppress any teachings that deviated from it. As a result, Gnostic texts were banned, and their followers were often persecuted. In one pivotal moment from the Gospel of Mary, Peter questions Mary's credibility, asking, "Did he really speak privately with a woman and not openly to us? Are we to turn about and all listen to her? Did he prefer her to us?" Gospel of Mary 9:4-5. It's a time of profound uncertainty. Jesus has been crucified, and his followers are scattered, their faith shaken to the core. They gather in secret, wrestling with fear and doubt, desperate for guidance. Among them stands Mary Magdalene, a woman often dismissed by history, but in this moment, she emerges as a beacon of wisdom. Peter and the other disciples are confused and uncertain, grappling with the loss of their leader. They've always looked to Jesus for answers, but now, in his absence, they're left searching for direction. It's here, in the heart of this crisis, that Mary steps forward, offering a revelation that will change everything. Mary begins to share what she alone was entrusted with, the secret teachings of Jesus, the knowledge that transcends the physical world. These are teachings that aren't about following rules or rituals, they're about something much deeper, something that goes straight to the heart of what it means to be human. She speaks of a journey not of the body, but of the soul, a journey inward, towards self-knowledge, where true salvation lies. The disciples listen, captivated, as Mary reveals a vision given to her by Jesus after his resurrection. She describes how he spoke to her of the soul's struggle against the powers that seek to keep it bound to the material world. These powers, known as the seven powers, represent all the forces that hold us back: darkness, desire, ignorance, jealousy, wrath, sloth, and arrogance. These are not just abstract concepts, they are the very obstacles we face every day. In this revelation, Mary tells of how the soul must confront and overcome each of these powers to ascend. It's a struggle, she says, that is not fought with weapons or force, but through understanding, self-awareness, and the shedding of the illusions that keep us chained to the material world. This is not just a battle for freedom, it's a battle for the very essence of the self. Peter, the most vocal of the apostles, reacts with disbelief. How could Jesus, their master, have entrusted such profound teachings to a woman? The tension in the room rises as Peter challenges Mary's authority, questioning the validity of her vision. But Mary stands firm, her voice unwavering. She speaks with the conviction of someone who has seen beyond the veil, someone who understands the truth in a way that defies the expectations of those around her. "I saw the Lord in a vision," she says, her voice clear and strong, "and he said to me, 'Mary, blessed are you for not wavering at the sight of me.' Where the mind is, there is the treasure." Gospel of Mary 5-7-8. This bold declaration puts Peter on the defensive, but it also sparks something in the other disciples, a recognition, perhaps, that the wisdom Mary speaks of resonates with a deeper truth, one that transcends their previous understanding. It's a moment of profound emotional and intellectual conflict as they grapple with the implications of her words. This is where the teachings of Gnosticism come into play, offering a framework that explains Mary's vision in a broader context. Gnosticism, as an ancient spiritual movement, challenges the traditional Christian understanding of the world. It posits that the material realm is not just flawed, but inherently corrupt, a creation not of a benevolent God, but of a lesser, malevolent being known as the demiurge. The demiurge is often depicted as a false god, a ruler who has trapped the divine spark within each of us in a physical body, binding us to a world filled with suffering and illusion. This concept radically shifts the way one views life on earth. It's not a gift to be cherished, but a prison from which we must escape. This belief isn't just an abstract philosophy, it's a call to action, urging the soul to awaken and recognize its true origins beyond the confines of this material existence. In this worldview, the teachings of Jesus, and specifically, the hidden wisdom shared with Mary Magdalene, are keys to unlocking the knowledge that can free the soul. This is where Gnosticism diverges sharply from Orthodox Christianity. Rather than focusing on salvation through faith and obedience to the Church, Gnosticism emphasizes gnosis, or knowledge, specifically, the knowledge of the divine self. The Gospel of Mary hints at this secret knowledge, urging the disciples to look beyond what they see and to seek the truth within themselves. As Mary relays Jesus' teachings, she underscores the importance of understanding the forces that bind us, the 7 powers that govern the material world, and how, by recognizing and overcoming these forces, the soul can ascend to a higher plane of existence. This idea that the material world is a distraction, a realm ruled by ignorance and illusion, is central to Gnostic thought. The soul's journey, according to Gnostic teachings, is not about achieving perfection in this life, but about transcending it altogether. This is a stark contrast to the teachings of the Orthodox Church, which focus on the resurrection of the body and the sanctity of the material world. As Mary continues her discourse, the tension among the disciples grows. They are faced with a profound dilemma. To accept the teachings of Gnosticism is to reject much of what they've been taught. It's a path that requires them to question not only the nature of God, but the very purpose of their existence. This inner conflict is mirrored by the external struggles they face, opposition from both within the early Christian community and from the broader Roman society that views any deviation from orthodoxy as heresy. Gnosticism doesn't just challenge religious norms, it questions the very structure of society. By teaching that salvation comes through personal knowledge and spiritual awakening, it undermines the authority of established institutions, both religious and political. This is why Gnostic texts like the Gospel of Mary were suppressed, banned, and almost lost to history. They represented a threat to the powers that be, offering an alternative vision of reality that placed the individual soul above all earthly authorities. Mary describes how, after death, the soul doesn't simply drift into the afterlife. Instead, it must confront and overcome the 7 powers that govern the material world. These aren't just abstract concepts, they are tangible forces that influence every aspect of human experience. Each power represents a different challenge the soul must face as it seeks to ascend. The first power, darkness, is the most basic level of ignorance. It's the force that blinds us to the truth, keeping us trapped in a cycle of confusion and fear. As the soul confronts darkness, it begins to see through the illusions that have clouded its vision. Next, the soul encounters desire. This is the force that binds us to the material world through our cravings and attachments. Desire is powerful because it's deeply ingrained in our nature. Our need for security, pleasure, and fulfillment keeps us anchored to the physical realm. To move beyond desire, the soul must recognize these cravings for what they are, temporary distractions from the true spiritual path. The third power is ignorance. This isn't just a lack of knowledge, but a willful refusal to see the truth. Ignorance keeps the soul in a state of complacency, content with superficial understanding and unwilling to delve deeper. Overcoming ignorance requires a commitment to seeking out knowledge and understanding, no matter how uncomfortable the truth may be. As the soul ascends, it faces jealousy. This power manifests as envy and resentment, emotions that keep us focused on what others have rather than on our own spiritual growth. Jealousy is particularly insidious because it not only distracts us from our path, but also creates division and conflict with others. To transcend jealousy, the soul must cultivate a sense of contentment and gratitude for its own journey. Wrath is the next challenge, representing anger and hatred. These emotions are destructive, both to the self and to others, and they keep the soul chained to the material world through their intense energy. Overcoming wrath requires the soul to develop patience and forgiveness, releasing the anger that binds it. The sixth power is sloth, a force that encourages laziness and complacency. Sloth isn't just physical laziness, but spiritual inertia, a reluctance to engage with the deeper aspects of the self. It's the temptation to take the easy path, to avoid the difficult work of spiritual growth. To overcome sloth, the soul must cultivate diligence and a strong will to continue its ascent. Finally, the soul confronts arrogance. This power is the belief that one has already attained spiritual enlightenment, that there is nothing more to learn. Arrogance is dangerous because it blinds the soul to its own shortcomings, preventing further growth. To move beyond arrogance, the soul must embrace humility, recognizing that the journey is ongoing and that there is always more to learn. This vision of the soul's ascent offers a profound insight into the Gnostic worldview. It emphasizes that true spiritual growth requires a deep understanding of oneself and a commitment to overcoming the forces that keep us bound to the material world. Mary's teachings provide a clear and practical guide for those who seek to transcend the limitations of this life and reach a higher state of being. While the traditional narrative often relegates Mary to the background, the Gnostic texts reveal a different story, one where Mary is not just a follower, but a leader, even referred to as the apostle to the apostles. The Gospel of Mary paints a picture of a woman who was deeply trusted by Jesus, a confidant who received special knowledge that even the other apostles were not privy to. This elevated status, however, did not come without its challenges. Mary's prominence among the disciples sparked tension, particularly with Peter, who is depicted in several apocryphal texts as being openly hostile to her authority. In one pivotal moment from the Gospel of Mary, Peter questions Mary's credibility, asking, "Did he really speak privately with a woman and not openly to us? Are we to turn about and all listen to her? Did he prefer her to us?" Gospel of Mary 9:4-5. This confrontation highlights the underlying power struggle within the early Christian community, a struggle that was as much about gender as it was about spiritual authority. But Mary, unshaken, stands her ground. She recounts the teachings she received directly from Jesus, teachings that focus on the inner journey of the soul, a theme that Peter and others find difficult to accept. Her unwavering confidence in the face of skepticism underscores her unique position within the group. Mary isn't just another disciple, she is a leader, entrusted with a profound spiritual message that challenges the traditional structures of authority. This tension between Mary and Peter is more than just a personal conflict, it represents a broader struggle within early Christianity over the role of women and the nature of spiritual authority. While the canonical Gospels largely emphasize the leadership of Peter and the male apostles, Gnostic texts like the Gospel of Mary offer a different perspective, one where women, too, hold positions of spiritual significance. The implications of Mary's role are far-reaching. By positioning Mary as a central figure, the Gospel of Mary challenges the patriarchal structure that would come to dominate the early church. It suggests that spiritual authority is not tied to gender, but to one's inner understanding and connection to the divine. This idea was radical for its time, and it's no surprise that texts highlighting Mary's leadership were marginalized and eventually banned by the early church. But why was Mary's role so threatening to the established order? The answer lies in the nature of her teachings. Unlike the hierarchical structure of the early church, which emphasized obedience to authority and adherence to doctrine, Mary's message was one of inner knowledge and personal spiritual experience. She taught that the path to salvation was through self-knowledge and direct experience of the divine, a message that undermined the power of religious institutions. This concept of inner spiritual authority is a key theme in Gnosticism and one that resonates strongly in the Gospel of Mary. By advocating for a direct, personal connection to the divine, Mary's teachings bypass the need for intermediaries, be they priests, apostles, or even established doctrines. This was a direct challenge to the authority of the early church, which sought to control access to spiritual knowledge. Mary's role as a leader and teacher in the early Christian community forces us to reconsider the traditional narrative. It invites us to question the established boundaries of spiritual authority and to explore the possibility that the early Christian movement was far more diverse and far more inclusive than history has traditionally allowed. How did these revolutionary ideas, along with other Gnostic teachings, almost vanish from history? The answer lies in the fate of the Gnostic texts themselves, writings that offered a very different perspective on the teachings of Jesus and the nature of the divine. These texts, which include the Gospel of Mary, were systematically suppressed, labeled as heretical, and ultimately banned by the early church. But in 1945, a remarkable discovery would bring these lost voices back to light. In a small Egyptian town called Nag Hammadi, a collection of ancient manuscripts was unearthed, manuscripts that had been hidden away for nearly 1,600 years. This discovery, known as the Nag Hammadi Library, contained a wealth of Gnostic writings, including the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Gospel of Truth. These texts, long thought to be lost, provided a window into a form of early Christianity that had been all but erased from history. The significance of the Nag Hammadi discovery cannot be overstated. It was like finding a missing piece of a puzzle, revealing a side of Christian thought that had been buried for centuries. The texts offered insights into a spirituality that emphasized direct, personal experience of the divine, an approach that resonated deeply with the teachings of Mary Magdalene. One of the most striking aspects of these Gnostic texts is their emphasis on gnosis, the Greek word for knowledge. But this isn't just any knowledge, it's a deep, intuitive understanding of the divine within oneself. The Gospel of Thomas, for example, begins with the words, "Whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death." This idea of spiritual enlightenment through self-knowledge is a theme that runs through many Gnostic texts, including the Gospel of Mary. But why were these texts so threatening to the early church? The answer lies in their content. Gnostic writings often challenged the established doctrines of the church, offering alternative views on the nature of God, the role of Jesus, and the path to salvation. For example, the Gospel of Philip presents a more mystical view of the relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene, suggesting that they shared a deep spiritual bond, one that was perhaps more profound than the traditional accounts acknowledge. Moreover, Gnostic texts often reject the idea of a singular, omnipotent God, instead portraying a complex cosmology with multiple divine beings, including a lesser god or demiurge who created the material world. This view directly contradicted the monotheistic doctrine of the early church and posed a significant challenge to its authority. The early church responded to this challenge with force. Gnostic writings were condemned at councils such as the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, where the church sought to define orthodox Christian doctrine and suppress any teachings that deviated from it. As a result, Gnostic texts were banned, and their followers were often persecuted. But despite the church's efforts to erase these teachings, the discovery of the Nag Hammadi library has ensured that the wisdom of the Gnostics has not been lost. Today, scholars and spiritual seekers alike study these texts, exploring the rich and diverse landscape of early Christian thought. Building on the rediscovered wisdom of the Gnostic texts, we arrive at the heart of their message, one that resonates deeply with the teachings of Mary Magdalene. Salvation is not something handed down from above, but something we achieve through deep, personal self-knowledge. In the Gnostic worldview, the material world is seen as a creation of the demiurge, a lesser, imperfect deity who traps souls in physical bodies. The true God, according to Gnostic belief, is beyond this material realm, and the spark of the divine within each person is a fragment of this higher reality. To escape the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth in the material world, one must awaken to this inner divinity through gnosis, a profound, intuitive knowledge of the self and the divine. Mary Magdalene's teachings, as seen in the Gospel of Mary, align perfectly with this Gnostic emphasis on self-knowledge. She speaks of the soul's journey not as a path of outward conquest or adherence to dogma, but as an inward quest to overcome ignorance and realize one's true nature. This journey involves confronting the 7 powers, forces of the material world that bind the soul, as we explored earlier. The key to this journey, Mary teaches, is not found in external rituals or religious institutions, but within oneself. The Gospel of Mary records Jesus telling her, "Where the mind is, there is the treasure." Gospel of Mary 5:7. This statement encapsulates the essence of the Gnostic path. The mind, when properly attuned, is the gateway to the divine. Salvation, then, is not about waiting for an external savior. It's about realizing the divine spark within and transcending the limitations imposed by the material world. This idea of self-salvation through knowledge is what makes Gnosticism both compelling and controversial. It shifts the locus of spiritual authority from the church to the individual, challenging the hierarchical structures that were being established in early Christianity. It's no wonder that these teachings were suppressed. They represented a profound threat to the emerging orthodox doctrines that sought to centralize power within the institutional church. But Mary's message is clear: true freedom and salvation come from within. The Gnostic texts echoed this sentiment repeatedly. For instance, in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus is quoted as saying, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not have will destroy you." Gospel of Thomas, saying 70. This emphasizes the importance of inner discovery, of unearthing the divine knowledge that lies dormant within each person. By focusing on self-knowledge, Mary and the Gnostics invite us to view salvation not as a distant promise, but as a present reality, something that can be attained here and now, through the cultivation of wisdom and understanding. This perspective encourages a form of spiritual practice that is introspective and deeply personal, rather than one based on external conformity. Furthermore, this approach to salvation speaks to the universal human experience. It transcends specific religious boundaries, offering a path that is accessible to anyone, regardless of their background. The Gnostic emphasis on inner knowledge and direct experience of the divine resonates with spiritual seekers across cultures and centuries, making it a timeless message of empowerment. Mary Magdalene's role as a leader in early Christianity, as revealed through the Gospel of Mary and other Gnostic writings, was revolutionary. She wasn't just a follower, she was a teacher, a spiritual guide who offered a path to salvation through inner knowledge. Her emphasis on the soul's journey, overcoming the 7 powers, and the need for personal gnosis, presents a vision of Christianity that is deeply empowering and transformative. Mary's teachings remind us that the journey towards spiritual awakening is not about external conformity, but about internal transformation. It's about looking within, confronting the forces that bind us to the material world, and realizing our true nature as beings of light and spirit. This message is as relevant today as it was in the early centuries of Christianity. In a world that often emphasizes external success and material wealth, Mary's call to focus on the inner self resonates with those seeking a deeper, more meaningful existence. Her legacy challenges us to rethink what it means to be spiritual. It's not about following a prescribed set of rules or doctrines, but about embarking on a personal journey of discovery. The Gnostic texts, including the Gospel of Mary, offer a blueprint for this journey, one that is accessible to anyone willing to seek the truth within themselves. The impact of Mary Magdalene's teachings can be seen in the renewed interest in Gnostic spirituality today. Scholars, spiritual seekers, and even mainstream religious communities are beginning to recognize the value of these ancient texts, not just as historical documents, but as living guides to spiritual awakening. Mary's legacy continues to inspire those who are willing to look beyond the surface and explore the deeper mysteries of existence. In closing, Mary Magdalene's teachings are a powerful reminder that the path to salvation is a personal journey, one that requires courage, introspection, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. It's a journey that each of us can embark on, guided by the knowledge that the divine is not something distant, but something we carry within ourselves. As it is written in Luke 17 verse 21, "The kingdom of God is within you." This verse encapsulates the essence of Mary's message that the divine is not found in temples or rituals, but in the heart of every individual. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Mary Magdalene's profound legacy. If you've enjoyed this journey, we invite you to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep these important discussions alive. And as always, may God bless each and every one of you.